about you guys, but I reckon that intro of 89 movie in about an hour is pretty good and sets the tone beautifully for what is going to be a massive 2012 Grand Final between the Sydney Swans and the Hawthorn Hawks. Both teams deserve to be into the Grand Final. They've been very, very good throughout the season and throughout the finals series, both winning their first final and then having the week off and then winning their second final. Though Hawthorn were the ones that struggled a bit, we all expected them to be through pretty easily against Adelaide, but it was the other way around. Sydney are the ones that pretty much dominated Collingwood, and Hawthorn are the ones that just got over the line by 5 points against Adelaide. So not the best setup for the Grand Final, but they're still there nonetheless. Last time these two teams met was round 22, so not long ago at the SCG, where Sydney 95 lost to Hawthorn 102. In the last few minutes, scores were level, they were both pushing for the win, and then bang bang, I think Hawthorn kicked a goal and a point, just sealed the game, with Franklin kicking 4, and Kennedy for Sydney having most possessions on the ground, 35. We shouldn't really look too much into the previous games because this is the Grand Final, it's a whole different ball game. Past meetings don't really count, I don't think. It's all going to be about Saturday. They're not going to have that in their mind at all. They're just going to look at the task ahead and they're going to go for that. They're not going to be wondering about, you know, last time we played them, how did we go, this and that. They'll review the game, but it's really just going to be a fresh start on the big day on Saturday. The one thing though that will stand out for Sydney will be Franklin's form against them last time they played. He kicked 4 goals. And for Hawthorn, Kennedy, 35 touches, dominated the midfield. They're going to have to put someone on him to make him accountable and not run off and have that many disposals again. Because if he does, he'll probably win the Norm Smith and Sydney will probably be the premiers. So you've got to be careful there. But if Franklin gets on top again, he kicks his 4 goals, 5 goals, it's going to be very hard to see Sydney winning the game, because when he's kicking those goals, he's bringing everyone else into the game, he's putting confidence in through his midfield where they're going to kick it long to him at every opportunity they get, which is going to be important because last time was at the SCG, this time it's the MCG. SCG, it's small, congested, it's suited to Sydney's style, they can break down the game and slow it down. At the MCG, it's wide, much bigger ground, more room for Buddy, more room for Sam Mitchell, Luke Hodge, these sort of players to do their work. And obviously more room for Hawthorn to get their short kicking game going, which is something that Sydney will need to stop. This brings me to my key stats for the match. Hawthorn averaged 17 goals per game compared to the Swans 15, so not much of a difference there. Hawks averaged 66 tackles while the Swans averaged 71, so again pretty close. This is where it gets a bit different. Hawks averaged 91 marks to the Swans 75. So that's a key indicator of where the Swans need to knuckle down. They need to make sure that Hawthorn, they don't get their 91 to 100 marks a game, because that means that they're chipping it around. They have possession, which means that Sydney don't have possession. They're running and not really dictating the game, which is what they need to do. They need to go out there, play their game, slow it down, and then play on the counter-attack from defence, which is what they did so well against Collingwood. Collingwood would push forward, bring everyone up. The defence really didn't show their forward line much respect, pushed up again. Sydney would then get the ball in the defence and push it out through Reece Shaw, Grundy, and all of those sort of players down forward to Reid and Lewis Roberts-Thompson, who was excellent against Collingwood. Sydney needs to make sure that there's a 50-50 contest everywhere, all over the ground. The ball's in the air. It's not going to be just an easy mark to Hawthorn. It's going to be punched or it's going to be contested. That's what they need to do. Just every contest they need to get to. They need to make sure that Hawthorn don't get their handballs going, don't get their short kicks going, because that's when they're at their best. Adelaide did really well last week. They spread Hawthorn's back half, so they made sure that Gibson and Shawmakers weren't together, which means that they can't, you know, help each other out. And that's what makes a good defence. But if you make them accountable and separate them, that means they're one-on-one with their opponents. And they're great as a team, but individually, they're not the best players. Shawmakers is still pretty young, and Gibson obviously can be beaten, although he's very good at killing the ball as well, so they've got to watch that. But that's definitely a key for Sydney. They've got to separate the defence. They've got to get Reid one-on-one with Gibson or wherever he's going to be on. Then you've got LRT, who dominated Collingwood, kicking a few goals. Very dangerous in the forward line. And then you've got Jeddah at their feet. So that's going to be a really important thing for Sydney to do in order to win the game. On the other hand, Hawthorn need to play a lot better than they did last week. Last week's effort, with no disrespect to Adelaide, will not beat Sydney. The Sydney that we've seen in this final series against Adelaide and Collingwood, that won't beat them or won't be good enough. They need to be ruthless, they need to be tough, courageous, they need to be clean with the ball, and not have some mental lapses as they did against Adelaide, where they got on a roll when they needed to, but then they let them back into the game towards the end and then got ahead again. They need to just play consistent as they have throughout the season. So if they do have a bit of a lapse, Sydney will look to take advantage and kick away. So they've got to be very careful there, because Sydney aren't low scoring like they used to be, like we've seen them in the 2005 and 6 Grand Finals against West Coast. They're a pretty high scoring team now. They can kick goals and kick them quickly. So that's something they need to keep their eye on, because everyone's expecting a tight contested game. But at the same time, when Sydney want to, and if they're given the space, they will break open with the likes of Jeddah and Adam Goodes and kick a lot of goals. Now for my key players. First we'll start off with Hawthorn. I think Shawmakers is a key in this game. He's going to either go on Reid or possibly Goodes. He's really got to be strong in this case, because, like I said, if they separate him and they're one-on-one, it's really up to him to just hold his position and beat his opponent, or just break even with him. 1 or 2 goals is okay. More than that, and Sydney are getting on a roll and they're looking to win the game. Another key player, I think, for Hawthorn is David Hale. He's been outstanding as ruckman this year. He's gone forward, he's kicked goals, he's gone back, taken marks and protected the defence. He's got to do this more than ever on Saturday, especially when you've got Adam Goodes who can go in the ruck, Lewis Roberts-Thompson who can go in the ruck, Martin Pike, I'm not sure if he's going to play, but he is a ruckman. And then you've got the monster Mumford, who is an outstanding ruckman and can also do exactly what Hale does, probably better, go forward and kick a lot of goals. So he's got to really balance it out. When he goes forward, make sure you take Mumford with you, because then you can make him accountable. And when Mumford disappears, Hale's got to make sure that he can get back and man up on him, because if Mumford can create a mismatch with some of the Hawthorn defenders, obviously he's much bigger than them, one-on-one, then he's going to dominate in the air and possibly kick a lot of goals. And that may get Sydney over the line, so they're going to be really careful there, because he's a very good ruckman. Now for my key players for Sydney. I think LRT, Lewis Roberts-Thompson, is a key player for them. He showed it last week against Collingwood, up forward, kicked a lot of goals, got them over the line, put something in the air, took the pressure off Reid, which is a real key because he's a very good young prospect, but a lot of the times this year there've been defenders that have double teamed him and he hasn't really got a chance at the ball. But that'll come over time once he gets bigger and better. But LRT is definitely going to take the pressure off him, because Reid will probably get one of the better defenders. And then you've got Adam Goodes there, so LRT is the 3rd tall, which means he'll get the 3rd or 4th even best defender from Hawthorn, which means he's got a real advantage there because he's pretty good. So that's something that Sydney would look to maybe isolate, because you could give the other guy space, and then you've got LRT there who can take a good mark and he's a fairly straight kick of goal. That could cause Hawthorn a lot of problems, because they haven't got the biggest defence. That's what people need to understand. They're very good as a team defence, but one-on-one isolated, they're not great. My other key player for Sydney is Jeddah. This is a game where he can tear up. It's a bigger ground. MCG's first grand final. It's time for him to just rip it apart. He was very good against Collingwood. He kicked that amazing goal where he ran basically the whole field and the players couldn't even catch him. So that's something he's got to do this week. He's got to show his flair. He's got to use his speed. Not just to kick goals, but also to set up everyone else and create space. And then down the other way. Not all attacking. Make sure you defend, mate. You've got to run back, tackle, put all that forward line pressure on, then go back and do it in the defensive half. And that's really what the grand final is about. You go out there and you do your best and see if your team wins. It's not really about roles and tagging and all that sort of stuff that it is in the season. This is just, alright, mates, go out there. I trust you to do your jobs. I will do the best I can, and let's see if we can win this thing. Now for everyone who wants to make money on the game, I'll give you the odds for the two teams. Hawthorn are $1.45 favourites, while Sydney are $2.80, which is really long odds considering how good Sydney have been in the final and how Hawthorn played last week. And the last time they played, it was a very close game. And for the Norm Smith Medal, Sam Mitchell is the favourite at $7, while Josh Kennedy is at $7.50. Though I think Luke Hodge and Adam Goodes at $12 are really good odds to win the Norm Smith. Adam Goodes has been on the big stage before, he's done it before, he's won the premiership. Luke Hodge the same, 2008, had a great grand final. They know how to deal with the pressure. Though the downside for Luke Hodge is he missed last week, so he's jumping into a grand final after so many weeks off. It might be a bit of a risk going for him, but he might just jump into it and dominate the game. You don't know. Hopefully the weather holds up on Saturday, because they've been saying that it's going to be rain, it's going to hail, which may help Sydney. Sydney are a very good wet weather team, though Hawthorn aren't too bad either, because they played other games at MCG, and so does Sydney at the SCG. It's really going to be interesting to see, if it does rain, which team's going to adapt better and quicker. But now for my tip. For the 2012 AFL Grand Final is Hawthorn. I'm tipping Hawthorn. I'm tipping them by 25 points. A lot of people are going to disagree with me. They're going to think that it's going to be a lot closer than that. It may well be. 25 points isn't really a big win. It's a comfortable win. But I think that at the MCG, if the weather holds up, big ground, their scare from last week is just going to click them into gear, because they weren't at their best last week. Sydney have been great. There's no reason why they shouldn't win Sydney. That's the thing. It's just that if Hawthorn play the way that we've seen this season, they will beat Sydney. Their best is better than Sydney's best. So it's really up to Hawthorn, I think. Sydney will play the same way, I think, as they did last week. They're going to play tough. They're going to play contested football. They're going to play disciplined. But if Hawthorn can just get on a roll, as they did in patches last week, then I think they'll just get over one, especially with Buddy Franklin up forward, Mitchell in the midfield, Luke Hodge back, and Cyril Rioli. I think they might just have too much, but either way, it's going to be an amazing grand final. All of you enjoy it. You know, you've got to have the typical Aussie barbecue if you're not going. Maybe go to Fed Square, see it on the big screen, then go to the parade tomorrow. Soak it all in, especially you Sydney and Hawthorn supporters. You're very lucky. I'm very jealous. Enjoy it. It's going to be awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed this grand final video. I did what I thought you guys might enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the intro. I thought it was pretty cool with the nice music. Thank you Audio Micro for that. Thank you everyone again for your support throughout the season. I'll hopefully do this again next season. Make sure you like the video as you've done a lot throughout the season. Thank you for that. Subscribe above if you want to see more. I do Arsenal videos now, so for all your EPL supporters, check that out if you like. Comment below, tell me who you think's going to win the grand final, who you think's going to win the Norm Smith. I said Hawthorn's going to win the grand final, and Norm Smith, I think, might be Sam Mitchell. Again, thank you very much, and have an awesome weekend.